would lose more. The sun was shining over the plain. A month later, Rakona bowed, burying his head in the floor, and declared that he was wrong. He asked to save his production. Lloyd looked at the nobleman with disdain, and Xavier watched this picture in shock. The brown-haired man lifted his chin and asked if smart people had really conveyed to the man the idea that he would not win. The guy thought it was obvious, because it would not work to plot. This would be his ultimate failure. The man replied that he had been reckless and that he was truly sorry. The hero leaned on his hand and said that he was not particularly interested in words. Rakona began to sweat and exclaimed that he, the Viscount, was humiliating himself and begging in this way. The youth grinned and asked if pride was worth at least 0.1 gold. If so, he would sell it for 1,000 or even 10,000 times more. Tears welled up in the man's eyes. Lloyd leaned over and said that he did not need an apology. The boy showed a contract for the supply of water between Baron Frontera and Viscount Rakona and asked for only a small signature. The interlocutor began to look through the document. The hero said that the man should sign here, and his workshop would be restored in a week. The Viscount turned white. He frowned and shouted that it was too expensive, and what was the point of paying for water at all? The young man looked menacingly at the nobleman and reminded him that he was the one who taught the hero that water had to be paid for. Rakona looked at the young man with fear and trembled. The sky turned the colors of the sunset. Arcus leafed through the contract in surprise and asked if such a huge amount would really be coming in every month. Lloyd put his hands on his hips and replied that the Viscount himself had signed the papers. His father muttered that if that was the case, he would be able to pay off the interest and even have some left. The young man clapped his hands and said with a smile that the Viscount turned out to be such a good man. At these words, the knight turned pale. Xavier knew that Rakona himself had started this war, and in the end everything ended in favor of their estate and the Baron. However, now the young master was already starting to look like the devil. After all, this contract did not specify the terms. This means that the guy will suck all the money out of the Viscount until his death, and then he will take money from his heirs generation after generation.